All right, y'all. Thank you for joining me again. Here comes the rest. Even if you don't feel his presence, sin and lack of faith separates you from him. But if you repent, turn from your wicked ways, down to uprooting your thoughts, you will come to know him as he reveals himself and the Holy Spirit to you, which is the utmost honor and privilege. That's when Jesus Christ does the impossible. If God came to me while I was in the pit of despair and liberated me from the utter depravity of sin, addiction, and slavery, God will do the same for you too. No person can get you out of there. You need a divine intervention. But first you got to believe, and then you got to surrender wholeheartedly. Okay? You must be willing. To surrender your will to God is not an act of weakness. It's the ultimate act of strength. You will be empowered by doing so. There is nothing attractive or desirable about sin. Sin always comes in a deceitful disguise, but when unmasked, it's revealed for the foul, disgusting abomination it really is. So I'm a transient, living in a park in San Francisco when the impossible happened. I was walking to my usual spot in the woods late one night, like many nights before, when suddenly, above the tall canopy of the trees, I saw a stunning, miraculous vision. I had never had visions before. Now, as I had previously mentioned, I had extensive research in various drugs and what their different effects were. And what happened that particular night was no drug-induced experience. I was suddenly stopped dead in my tracks, seeing that a huge glowing throne above the canopy of the trees had manifested, with a man who resembled Zeus, who's the Greek god of the king of the gods in mythology, was sitting upon it. He had long white hair and a long beard and chiseled features. On either side of him were two women. You could only see the sides of them, but they were nude. The formidable figure sat with glowing eyes on an enormous throne in the sky. Okay, and this was about 2011 that this happened. So it's before all this stuff that's going on right now in 2020. Okay, I was completely stunned and caught off guard by it. I was stopped dead in my tracks. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Every sound in the forest was silenced in his presence. There wasn't even a cricket chirping. It was as if a thick velvet blanket had been placed over the entire forest and muffled every sound. At that very moment, two words entered my mind that I had never known of before. Stupefied, which is the word for exactly how I was feeling. Stand there completely in awe with my mouth hanging open like a codfish. And prismatic, which is what this mysterious glowing alpha man was. I couldn't fully comprehend what was happening. I just stood there frozen, completely humbled and stupefied. I had always thought of myself as a spiritual person, but in the light of this incredible occurrence, I was completely confounded. I stared at this ginormous man sitting on the throne, glowing against the backdrop of the night sky. Suddenly, he did something completely strange and unexpected. Okay, he reached up. He reached up and he took off his head. Okay, and put it. There was a star that had started. A really bright star that had appeared in the sky that I had never seen before, and I had talked about to the other locals around the area, and they had never seen it before either. This figure took his head off, put it on that star. Okay? Then he began bouncing his head from star to star in the night sky, bobbing it from side to side with a huge smile on his face. A silly song that I had made up that I always sang to myself about connecting the dots started playing in my head as he was connecting the stars with his head. And at that very moment, I knew in the deepest part of my heart, mind, soul, and spirit, that's God. He was showing me something that I could personally connect with, because God always meets you where you're at. I understood at the time the image of Zeus as being the king of the gods in Greek mythology, so I would easily recognize and identify that imagery with God. Then the impossible feat of taking his head off while smiling at me and bobbing his head back and forth as I thought of that silly song, connect the dots, da-da-da-da, connect the dots, da-da-da-da. He was meeting me where I was at, in a silly, impossible, and childlike way, but very powerful, speaking to me in a language I could understand, so I would have an epiphany as to who he was, God. Afterwards, I was so elated and mystified by the encounter, I couldn't stop telling everyone who would listen about what had happened. I was in absolute awe and amazement over it. To my absolute shock, after the first encounter, I began to have regular supernatural occurrences with celestial beings in that park practically on a nightly basis. A couple of times, my company that I was with saw them too. Slowly but surely, God was introducing me to the reality of the spiritual dimension I've been completely nascent to. And that's a word God taught me. And it's very important. Nascent. It means absent of knowledge, completely ignorant, agnostic. It means you don't know that you don't know because you don't know. And nascent people are easy to control too. So that's another thing. Okay. The next time I had an encounter, it was transformative. They really all were, but seriously, it was the catalyst to my entire spiritual journey. Like I said before, I was sleeping at a certain spot in the woods on a regular basis. The woods had no artificial light at night and were completely dark, save for the light of the moon and the stars that they were out. I was at my spot keeping a low profile from random strangers, creeping around the park at night, when suddenly, because it wasn't always safe, you know what I mean? Different acts of violence had happened, random things in this park. So, at night, I keep a low profile. I was always by myself. I didn't usually bring people to my spot because once you did, it get, blown up. People would always come there and everything. And I didn't want people to really know where I was at. Okay? Well, this one night, somebody was creeping around stalking me. I'd been sleeping there for months. And so as low of a profile as you keep, people come to know where you are. Okay? And it was the first time I had ever felt like I was in danger. I just had this horrible, ominous feeling that something bad was about to happen, okay? And I'd never felt that way before. And like I said, I've been sleeping there for months, okay? So there was this little dirt mound with a tree growing out of it and a log and all these obstacles to get back to my spot to make it more difficult. And I was just hiding behind this little dirt pile, like, crouched down, like listening and watching, because I could hear somebody creeping around in the woods because sticks were breaking as they were getting closer, okay? Suddenly, okay, to my left, down the long dirt path between where my spot was and the wood and hillside was, because it was my spot, a dirt path, and then a hillside with a bunch of trees, all darkness and everything. Something bright and glowing appeared. It was clear as day, glowing brightly in the pitch black woods. It was a lion, a spirit lion, an immense, strong, and powerful lion with glowing, static, alive green eyes, enormous paws, and a massive head crowned with an impressively regal mane. Big lion, strong. Wasn't these poor, the lions here on earth today are getting, they're getting beat up and everything else, and they're not, as strong as they once were because of the state of the earth. But this one, he was walking towards me up the path with slow, steady, deliberate steps. I was frozen and completely stunned, watching this incredibly majestic lion coming towards me up the path. He was the most magnificent lion I had ever seen. He was a vision of absolute perfection. He got to be right across from where I was, crouched down, and he stopped. Then he slowly turned his massive head and looked right at me. Immediately, I started weeping. My whole body was shaking, and my heart was crying out, "I'm not worthy! I'm not worthy!" Over and over. Then the lion dissipated into the air, and I looked over to the entrance of my spot where I saw another spirit figure. He was completely suited up in black from head to toe with a mask on his face. Okay, with the sword, and he was crouched down like this, like he was ready for action. I knew right then that in my spirit that I was safe from whatever was going on in the forest that night. That these celestial beings were benevolent and they were protecting me. I was utterly shocked and I couldn't comprehend why. They were protecting me. I vividly recall how unworthy I felt of being in their powerfully divine presence or to be receiving their help and protection. I was moved in a deep, profound, and cathartic way. I had no idea at the time who these spirit figures were, but gradually through other supernatural occurrences that followed that were teaching me, I learned whose blessed presence I was in. Praise be to God forever and ever. Before I was taught by God who they were, I was visited on many occasions by the figure with the sword. Virtually every night, supernatural occurrences involving him and other celestial beings began to occur. Incredible miracles happened to show me whose presence I was in. Okay, now I'm just going to stop here because many people have different names for God. Okay, they call God all kinds of things. God taught me this. He has many names, okay? He's one God, but he's called many things, okay? I'm talking about God the Father, okay? God the Father revealed me, and that a rose, like Shakespeare said, a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. Just like with the Satan, the enemy, a stinkweed by any other name would stink as bad, okay? Because it's got many names too, okay? God revealed God's self to me with the name of Omni, okay? And it's sacred. Omni, when he told me his name was Omni, something clicked in me, like a light went off in my dusty attic, my dusty, cluttered attic, and it shone through everything, and I understood immediately, okay? So I call God the Father Omni, okay? Only got one more minute for 15 minutes, so hang in there with me. I just want to take this opportunity because I'm going to stop there and make another part. I don't know how many parts this is going to end up happening because it's quite the story, but please hang in there with me because my whole intention of sharing what happened to me with you is to let you know that I was in the gutter when all this started happening to me, and God saved me. He lifted me up. He elevated me, okay? And he's not holier than thou. I mean, he is, but he's willing. He wants everyone, okay? And I just want to share to tell you that God is real, the devil is real, and what happened to me to come to this realization, okay? Because I didn't always know it, and thank God I do too, and there's too many lost people out there who don't know it. So this is for you. So I'm going to continue again because I'm doing this in 15-minute increments, okay? To keep your attention and because I can't upload. So I love y'all, and stay tuned.